Okay, so I was watching some videos this morning and I was listening to some people talk about certain things having to do with government. And lately we've been talking on this channel about theatrics and government. And so I kind of wanted to make some links here. Years ago, I read a book on the writ of habeas corpus, and this is not really a video on the writ of habeas corpus. It's on a writ. It's a video on the power of constitutional offices. So in this book, the author writes that the power doesn't come from the people sitting in the office. It comes from the office itself. The Constitution doesn't create really people or individuals like royalty or nobility. It creates offices, and then the people elect people to sit in those offices as representatives of their will. But they have to stay within the confines of what's written in the Constitution. So the Constitution, not having created a nobility, an aristocracy, or a monarchy, it created a representative, or protects the representative governments of the states. There's not a set of people or type of people that have the power to sit in those offices that come from a certain class of people. Now, they do have to be a citizen of the United States, and it's my belief that the citizen of the United States is someone who is under contract to serve in the United States military, or has been under contract to serve in the United States as United States military, particularly in the case of the president, who works as the commander-in-chief of the United States Land and Naval Forces. He's required to have at least 14 years military service. Representatives 7, and seniors or senators 9. So the Constitution created these positions, but it did not create the people that sit in the positions. And the power of the offices come from the office itself that was created by the Constitution, not the people that sit in those offices. So when the people sitting in those offices are exercising power outside of the Constitution, they're exercising an arbitrary power that they have no actual official capacity to exercise, because it's not in the Constitution. So when these people create laws that are not constitutional, and they're not giving a source for the basis of that law, it's considered outside of the Constitution and outside of the power of the office. And so we get into this elliptical situation, is what the author says. And he says that a person can sit in the office and exercise constitutional power, and a person can sit in the same office and not exercise constitutional power. But when they exercise constitutional power, it's void. It has no force. No one is bound to obey it. Now, we know from many of the other videos that I've done that the Constitution, if the power of the Constitution is used in a legitimate law by someone sitting legitimately in that office, then the law is given what they call a positive law citation, meaning it's gone through all the processes of having been made constitutionally and having complied with the dictates of the Constitution. Now, we saw in Clinton's order, his executive order, I think it's something like 13131 or 3131, something like that. Clinton, back in the 90s, wrote an executive order, and it said that anything outside the principles that the deputies created in the Constitution is outside of the Constitution. So when these people sitting in these constitutional offices create a power or a law or anything outside of the Constitution, it's an elliptical force, this author says. And he says it's sort of like this. When you act outside of the office, you turn the power to act off. When you act inside the office, your power to act is on. So it's elliptical. The power that doesn't come with the office exercised turns off the power to exercise the power. So they don't have the power to do something outside of the office. The office comes with no power. There's no force. There's no dictates, there's no mandates, there's no order, nobody's being paid to do it. They don't have the authority to do it. It's void, it's null, it's as if it were nothing. You don't have to go to a court to have it voided. It's just void. Now I understand we're in kind of a weird situation here because they use the police against us and the courts against us. And this is where we get into this theater, right? This theater of them exercising a power that they don't have, and us going along with it. So they didn't have the power to create the law. They don't have the power to punish us for not following the law. But when we sign a contract or we begin acting as though it's a law, it's like it is a law. But if one person says, I'm not playing, that person is not a part of it, but everybody else who chooses to be a part of it is. So we're understanding this elliptical situation now, right? They don't have the power to act, to do anything outside the Constitution, yet they do, and then we play along with it because either we don't know any better or we're living in the body, we're living in fear. So that's another thing that we're talking about towards a legal or towards a theatrical jurisprudence, is he talks about the feeling and the emotion that we have when we're told to do something and we think it's coming from an actual authority. And so we feel like we have to play along, we have to go along, we have to do what we're told. But the more we do this, the more we enslave ourselves, the more we are following things being told us that we have to do that we don't actually have to do. And now we're getting into this situation where, soft times create soft men and hard times create hard men. But I disagree with that because I think some men are just soft no matter if it's a hard time or a soft time. They just won't act. So how many people do you know, men and women, how many people do you know won't do anything no matter what you tell them? They won't even fight a traffic ticket. They'll do something and then they'll go along with it and put these plates on their car or whatever, private property, but then when they get a ticket, they just go and pay the ticket. So we have to stop, if that's what we choose to do. We have to stop following these laws, these what they call laws that are not laws, that don't have a positive law citation, that come with this pretend power because we're emotionally aroused and in fear and think that we have to do it. So now we're getting into this idea of the legal state and what's the legal state. So people have asked me, so does the state have a positive law citation? Well, the state of, or the legal state, is kind of along with the federal state. So the federal government and the legal state are like one, and then the republics, commonwealths, are a different state. So when they're talking about, well, it's a state law, they're talking about really the federal and state connection, the relationship between the federal government and the state. They're not talking about the republics and the commonwealths. So in Texas, there is a current law on the books, Texas Jurisprudence, 3rd edition, Part 1, General, Subsection 1, Statehood, where it talks about the Republic of Texas still exists insofar as it doesn't conflict with federal authority. So that doesn't mean that we, state people, are supposed to comply with federal authority. It means that they have their relationship and we have our relationship. The federal and state has a federal-state relationship, and the state and the people have the state-people relationship. And then you have federal people and state people, and federal people and federal government and state. So you have all these different relationships, and that's jurisdiction. So this brings us to another issue, which is, how do we fight for our rights in the state court? Well, you have to know, are you at the Commonwealth or Republic, or are you in this legal state? The legal state is part of that fiction. Your birth certificate is part of the legal state. You have a legal name for a legal state, and that's on the Texas birth certificate. It's VS 101 was the old form. It's called an application to create a legal name for your baby, to be applied in a legal state, which is in this state of Texas, not Republic of Texas. In the Republic of Texas, there really are not many laws. And if there are laws, they're basically common laws. There are cultural laws. So the federal government uses its federal state courts, pretending to be republic courts, where it exercises a theatrical jurisprudence to try to get us to go along with it. And this theatrical jurisprudence is based in emotion, mostly fear. And so when you are afraid of it, you back down and you do what you're told, and you say, well, they're the authority and I have to do what I'm told, and I have to listen to them, and then if they give me an order, I have to follow it. And that's just theater. It's their you could call it deception, you could call it lies, you could call it a game, you can call it a lot of things, but it's not fact, it's fiction. And so when we start to understand these things and we start to get more people to talk about it, we start moving more towards freedom. So Gregory Mannarino talks a little bit about this kind of stuff. He's more on the economic side, where I'm more on the right of the people side. And basically he's also doing that because your economic independence is tied to all your other rights. You have to be economically independent to be able to exercise all your other rights. And there's an old saying that says something like, if you are a man of wealth, because this is old, it talks about men. If you're a person of wealth, then you're a person of leisure. And if you're a person of leisure, then you're free, because you're free to do whatever you choose to do. And whatever you choose to do comes along with wealth. So you can choose to be poor, but you still have to eat and have a roof over your head. So it's kind of all tied together. So I just wanted to put out this video real quick. And my main point here is the elliptical situation of the constitutional offices. And that's that the power outside, the power exercised outside the Constitution, turns off the power of the office. There is no power of an office to act outside the Constitution. If we follow it voluntarily. We follow it contractually. We follow it by our actions. We are playing the game. We are actors in the theater, and we're observing them, and then we're acting as part of the theater, like the poor man's theater in the article I read, where the educated people know they don't have to follow these laws. The uneducated people don't. Just like the educated people in a theater wait until the end of the show to show their approval or disapproval of what they've just seen. Whereas the uneducated, the poor theater, they hoop and holler all during the show, and then they act out and they become sort of part of the show. They're actors, they become actors in the show. So the elliptical power, the power outside of the Constitution, comes without the power of the office created in the Constitution. The power in the office is the constitutional power exercised in the constitutional office. And now I believe that the people that we believe we're electing and as part of government is not part of government at all, not in the Constitution. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to do a lot of the things that they do. But they do them because we just go along with it, and we're just actors in the show. So please like, share, subscribe, and I hope this was clear to you. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, leave them for me, and I'll see you in the next video.